Light it.
Time now to introduce the first ever guest on the triple option. And we went big. We went strong here. 7-time national titleist as head coach at Alabama. Most all-time. He and Urban Meyer, you know him, the only two coaches to have won at two different FBS schools, winning national titles. Coached 4 Heisman Trophy winners, including our own Deuce Deuce. He is the legend, Nick Saban. And Coach Saban, thank you for joining us. You're in Tuscaloosa right now. Where are you, though, right now? I'm curious looking at your background.
I have an office in the stadium now. They kind of, got me out of the Malmore building, so I wouldn't be in the way, which is probably a good thing. And I was just watching Georgia Tech last year. So this is a good place to be. I got some good people helping me and trying to prepare for the season because this is a sort of a new venture for us in terms of TV. But the one thing I do like about it, it keeps you involved in the game, which is really, really gives you something to do. And I love football. I love college football. So this has been great.
Coach, can we watch the game from your office?
The game that I'm watching?
No, I'm talking about like you're in Bryant-Denny Stadium, right? Your office is in the stadium.
In the stadium.
Do I have a view of the actual football game from your office? That's
No, sir.
Okay.
I don't have that kind of status, Mark. You probably
yes, you do.
You
name it.
You could probably get an office here that you could see the field from your office, but not me.
They naming the field after you, dude. What are you talking about? Like, you got all the juice. I was just hoping that I didn't need a ticket and I could just come straight to your office and watch the game.
Well, we could probably sneak you in, but
yeah,
I don't know about watching it from our office.
No, we just gonna upgrade you. But no, when we were talking about having a guest, they mentioned Coach Saban. I'm like, I figured you wouldn't have a problem with it because during our time together, we were 2-1 against this dude over here, Coach Meyer. You know what I mean? He says we were 1-1. He's just neglecting a whole team. Have you ever neglected a whole team? Like
no, we don't count 2010. We lost all our players. No, 08, 09. That was the two best teams, arguably, in the recent history. Those are some wild games. But no, 010, I went through the record book and just redlined it. That didn't happen.
He says it doesn't happen, but there's video footage of Coach Meyer on the sideline coaching that game. So we're 2-1, went our time together versus him. You know what I mean? But he just neglects a whole victory we had.
Well, all I know is when we played, they were always very tough games and really good teams, and used to drive me crazy on special teams with all that crazy stuff that you all did. But it was always challenging. I can tell you that much. I don't even remember the records. I just know how tough the games were.
Yeah, the 08, 09 games was different for sure.
Mark and I spent a lot of time talking about the 08, 09 and Tebow's comeback in the fourth. That was two great teams, Julio Jones, and I mean, just great effort across NFL players everywhere. Then 09, Mark told the story a little bit like we did with Georgia one year, that was just, not every day, but just a big emphasis to go get that game. And I'm just curious about, your take on that, where, you look back, Coach, those two teams, those are their, in my lifetime, those two teams, when they jogged out on the field, that was as good a football as I've ever seen in my lifetime. And you're talking about there wasn't a weakness.
No.
And whenever you watch a Nick Saban team, your job as a coach, go find some weakness. And I mean, by, 10 o'clock on Sunday, I'm saying, I can't find it. Your kickoff return to kickoff, like you said. And so just your take on that 09, and I know we take credit of giving Mark that Heisman over his right shoulder. He had 189 all-purpose yards in 09 against us. So your take, Coach.
Well, I've always said the SEC championship game is almost like a playoff game. But, the 08 and 09 games, I think in 08, you guys were 1, we were 2. The next year, it might have been vice versa, but I know we were 1 and 2. And those are two great teams, no doubt. But, the thing I loved about the 08 and 09 teams from our perspective at Alabama is, those guys all came to Alabama when we weren't any good. Even, Mark, when we recruited him, I mean, we're coming off of 7-6 and just trying to build a program. So, Julio Jones, Mark, a lot of the players that were on the field all came. Dante Hightower, they all came when we really weren't very good. And they had something to prove. And obviously the 08 game was, Tebow was fantastic. Couldn't get off the field on third down. That's all I can remember, especially in the second half, whether he scrambled or threw it or whatever. And then in the 09 game, it was, our big strategy change was, we were going to rush 5 guys as much as we could, make them throw it and see if we could guard everybody. And we couldn't guard everybody, but we did it well enough to be able to win the game. And I thought that was probably one of our greatest team efforts. And of all the teams, that team came together in that game as well as any that I ever coached. And we needed to because you had such a great team in Florida.
I tell these guys I can't remember my middle name or my address, but I remember the play in 09. Bama got off to a pretty good jump on us, and we were fighting and clawing back. And then Charlie Strong ran the corner blitz, Joe Hayden off the edge, and you guys ran a slip screen right behind him. And I think the tackle got up on Major Right, and it was out. And that was kind of that was the changer of the game. And it was, that was, like I said, I don't remember much, but I remember that kind of stuff, man.
Yeah. Shout out to my coach, Burton Burns, man. Rolled up corner, short side of the field, impress coverage, be alert for the corner cat, bluff the blitzer, out the gate. Let's go.
It's amazing, though, as a coach, that I think we were in the playoffs 12 times. So we won 7 playoffs, championship game, whatever. But the only ones that I remember is all the plays from the 5 that we lost.
Yes.
I agree.
Yes. The plays that haunt us.
Yeah, it just haunts you all the time. So kind of interesting.
One of those haunting moments, 2014, Coach said, please, Rob, don't bring it up. Don't bring it up. But I overruled Coach Meyer. College football playoffs, NFL talent all over the field. And the big storyline in 2014 when you guys met Ohio State was the Buckeyes were rolling out a third-string quarterback in Cardale Jones. What was the game planning and the thought process like that week leading into that game, Coach Saban?
Well, I mean, they had a lot of really good skill guys. They had a very good team. But we had all the respect in the world for, Cardale Jones. He was a big guy. He's strong arm, very talented people around him. So he didn't have to win the game for him, but he played extremely well in that game. And it was a battle, no doubt. But we couldn't really stop him. And, the tailback who plays for the Dallas Cowboys was pretty damn good too. So that was a really good team.
What was it like recruiting and coaching Deuce, Mark Ingram II?
Well, Mark, I shouldn't tell stories about Mark.
No, please tell. Please tell. We're here for him.
Yeah, tell the stories.
I saw Mark on high school film, and I thought, man, this guy is one of the best backs in the country. I was really impressed with his instinctive, way that he ran the ball, change of direction, burst out of, a cut, had good hands, had really good track time, so he had finishing speed. And so he was like our number one guy that we were going after. But what I was concerned about was, when I was at Michigan State, George, when I was a defensive coordinator, George Perlis used to go to Europe on Duffy Doherty's clinics or whatever in the summertime. So I was in charge of making sure everybody got eligible. And in those days, you could take as many hours of summer school as you want. And, Mark's dad, Big Mark,
There he goes.
Andre Rison were the 2 wideouts. And they were not easy to track down all the time. Make sure they were going to class. So the only way that I could track them down is I knew Big Mark's girlfriend and I had her number. So I would call and find out where he was. So when I went in Mark's home, I was like, man, I don't know if Mark's mom is really the call you called me. So I sat there for 2 hours hoping it never came up, and finally his mom started laughing at the end of the home visit and said, "I was the girl you used to call."
Yes.
Wow.
Good.
What a great story.
Yes, sir. She's like, Coach, that was me. You should call me.
Oh, I can't wait to see senior now. I cannot wait to see.
Hey, what was Mark like in the locker room and in the huddles and in all those practices? Because we know what he's like in our Big Noon locker room. What was he like back then?
Oh, Mark was a tremendous competitor, really hard worker, good leader. Teammates loved him. He was, fantastic. And I can tell you a story about him. We were playing in a Chick-fil-A, whatever it is, golf tournament over there at and in Lake Oconee, and we get in a playoff at the end with Georgia Tech, and we keep playing the 18th hole over and over and over. Well, the plane's waiting for me because I had to go speak at one of these alumni events, and they keep calling me on the phone. We're going to be late. We're going to be late. You got to get out of here. So after we were going to the fifth playoff, and I told Mark, I said, Mark, look, we really did well. The worst we're going to do is come in second. I said, I got to go after this hole, whether we win or lose. And, Mark put his hand down, and hit the seat and said, "You didn't teach me that way, Coach. We're going to kick these guys' ass."
Yeah. I'm like, Coach, come on, man. You talking about second place? We got to leave. We in the championship holes, man. You talking about you got to get out of here. Heck no, man. You ain't teach me this. You ain't talk to us like this. We need to get this one, man. But he had the AD, the president, everybody on the jet waiting on him. I'm like, hey, man, no, we got to get this done first before you go.
And we didn't get it done.
We didn't. We lost because you had the mentality. You had the wrong mentality.
That's right.
Coach, it's going to get easier. I can imagine you, because I know you fairly well, that every second of your life consumed with that team and keeping players healthy and recruiting and schedules. And what fills your time now, now that you're not consumed with Crimson Tide?
Yeah, well, having the opportunity to do the draft this year, SEC Media Day, now I'm going to do game day. There takes a lot of preparation time for these things, but the one thing that you can do is you do it on your time. You can do it in the morning, go play golf in the afternoon, go see your mom in the afternoon, whatever you need to do. So that keeps me busy. It gives me something to do. We have businesses that I'm involved with to a small degree, so I can spend some time doing that if I need to. But so the biggest thing is that I realized is for 50 years of my life, I was always in a hurry. Always in a hurry to do the next thing, always in a hurry to get wherever I was going because there was something else you had to do, whether it's go see a recruit, get ready for practice, prepare for a game, whatever it was. And what I realized when I retired is I didn't even know that I was always in a hurry. I just thought that was a way of life. So not to have that sort of stress point all the time has really been a good thing. It's great to be able to enjoy your kids, your grandkids, spend time with your wife, and not be in a hurry because you had to do something else as soon as you got home. So it's been really good, and I'm happy that I have something to do. I want to say that I retired from coaching, but I didn't really retire from working because I do enjoy having something to do all the time.
You the man, Coach. You the man. You deserve it, man. Shoot, all them years you done poured into players like myself, and you deserve to be able to enjoy your family and reap the benefits of what you sow in your whole entire life. So I'm excited for you. I'm happy for you. I'm glad you get to go out there and shoot your age in golf and practice how to surf in the ocean and stuff like that. You out there doing your thing, man. So I'm proud of you. But no, Coach, 7 national titles. 7 national titles. Is there one that sticks out to you most? That's your favorite, or one that just sticks? That's one that stands out more than the others.
Well, I think the first one obviously was at LSU in 2003.
Oh, damn!
And then
Wrong first one.
And then the 2009 first championship here at Alabama. And the reason those two first probably are the ones that resonate the most for me is what I mentioned before is all those guys came to the program when the program really wasn't successful. Once a program's successful, sometimes players come because of what you can do for them,
Right.
not really what they can do for the university or building a program or whatever. And it's okay that happens, but it's a lot more meaningful when all these players came to try to prove something and work their butt off to make it happen. And you're a part of it, and you grow together as a team. And I think those two are the because they were the first at each place were the most special. They're all great though, because that's the one thing about being a part of a team is when you get a team to reach the pinnacle of success. There's a lot of self gratification in that for not only myself but the entire group of people who contributed to it.
Roll down tide.
Boy, the evolution of the game has been amazing. And I look back when we first started coaching back in the 80s, and it was very set schedule. You got to spend so much time on your own team, and I felt that disappearing near the end of my career where, it was enough. It used to be, Bobby Bowden, coach, used to have his only recruiting weekend, third week in January. That was the only time they recruited. And I remember, obviously I was at Florida recruiting against them, it consumed you. And then as the calendar began to change at the end of your career and my career before you, was that I found it was very hard to spend time with your own team because you were constantly, when they started pumping those official visits in the spring, that wore me, that I just felt like I wasn't doing justice to our current team, our current roster. What's your thoughts on, the evolution of that, the time? It's almost like, and I talked to Ryan Day about it, you're a GM now. Ryan Day spends, half his time raising money for NIL as opposed to coaching his players. And I know what kind of coach you are. What's your thoughts on that evolution that took place during your last half of your career?
I don't think there's any question about the fact is, the last, especially 5 years, we've passed a lot of legislation relative to college football that has really made it more difficult to spend time with your current team, even though it's necessary now to spend a lot of time with your current team because you got to recruit the players on your team all the time because basically they're free agents twice a year. And but I think the biggest change was when, as you mentioned, when they changed the recruiting calendar to allow spring and summer visits. That really took away from those were almost sacred times when we had spring recruiting, but when spring recruiting was over, you had a lot of time to spend with your team, especially, throughout the summer. Even though you weren't allowed to go out there and coach them, you could spend a lot of time with them. And that's all kind of disappeared. And I think the biggest change for me as a coach was how much responsibility you had to put on the strength coach and other people in the organization who couldn't recruit as much. That they had to have great relationships to try to, sort of reinforce the culture that you were trying to get your players to compete to. So it was dramatic change from, and just the last 5 years. And even technically in terms of football and how it's changed. I always, sort of mention the fact that in 2013, 2014, we were having a hard time playing against Ole Miss. And they beat us a couple times because they were going so fast on offense. No huddle was kind of the new thing then. And we played Michigan this last year, and they got in a huddle, and our players didn't know how to adjust to that. So in a 10-year period, we went from not being able to play against no huddle to struggling to play against a team that did get in a huddle. So that just kind of reinforces how things have changed on and off the field in the last 10 years.
I really want to hit you with this and get your thoughts because I think the media, for some reason, doesn't report on it. Pretty traditionalist myself as far as the whole recruiting a high school athlete, bringing them in, developing them, making sure they can operate, life after college, all the things that, I know you coached at Ohio State and the Woody, Bo, all those great coaches we followed. But you see Coach Prime, who I know he's a friend of yours, a friend of mine, and you you start transitioning a team every year 40. Sometimes, I see those numbers and it astonishes me that you could rebuild a team and you get some of those kids aren't even showing up until July. And what's not being talked about is the residual. When I see, and I talk to a high school coach, I still have so many friends like we all do. When you see a program say, I'm not going to recruit high school players, or I'm saving, people don't realize that's the residual of that is those high school players might not be getting those opportunities that, I'm wondering where that's going to end up, because at the end of the day, college football is there for a reason. It's been there for a long time before us, and it's going to be there a long time after us. And that's to take young people, get them in a great environment, toughen them up, make sure academically they're set, and they can go live life after this game's done. That's the world I grew up in. Now that you see the teams are more focused on transfer portal, what's a residual in your mind of that and down to the high school athlete?
Yeah, well, it's always been my philosophy, and I think yours as well, is, players that came into your program, the number one goal is how can we help them be more successful in life because they were involved in the program? So you're really going to create value for your future. And as an athlete, that could be on the field in terms of developing a career at the next level. But most importantly, preparing yourself for the day you couldn't play football. And that means making sure you get an education. And, I'm really proud of the fact that we had 668 degrees here in 7 years. Like 575 of them were undergraduate, and a lot of graduate degrees, from our players. And that's really what it's all about. Now, you and I coached back in the day where, we didn't have progress toward a degree rules. We didn't have, you could take as many hours in the summer to get eligible, and the graduation rates were, not very good. And we went through probably a 25-year process of developing ways that we could make sure guys were developing careers off the field. And we got to the point where we have 85% graduation rates, and we had personal development programs, mental health care. We had all these things that, enhance players having the opportunity to be, more successful in life. And, the one fear that I have is, guys being able to transfer, especially 2 or 3 times, may impact how many guys graduate. So we may have down the road, we may have some sad stories about what happens to these players. And has all this progress that we made through these years to get where we are now, is this going to be something that really doesn't enhance the opportunity of helping that continue to grow and be successful in the future? So I am very concerned about that, because there is some statistical information out there as to when you transfer, that how that impacts your chances to graduate. And I do think that, having the ability to transfer after, 2 or 3 years at a school, and you can go someplace else and play, maybe that's not a terrible thing in some cases. But, when guys just do it for financial reasons, I think, it's a little short-sighted in terms of what they can develop, down the road.
Coach, I want to sneak in one Alabama question. Coaching the Crimson Tide that's a whole different animal. When Kalen DeBoer took over, what were some of the questions he asked you? What was some of the advice that you wanted to make sure you shared with him?
Well, I think the biggest thing, Urban coach at Ohio State is no different there. I mean, when you coach at these programs that have high expectations, which is what we all want, there's nothing wrong with that. But I think the number one thing you got to do is be who you are, focus on, the things that are in front of you, and don't get impacted by external factors. Whether it's, everybody says there's a lot of pressure. We all put more pressure on ourselves than anybody in the media, fans, or anybody else's expectations could ever put on us. But, and I think that's a little more difficult to do, in this day and age because of social media. Social media is a great thing in terms of creating interest, in athletics. But, when players start to believe what they read on the internet, that sometimes can affect their psychological disposition of how they approach what they do, whether they get frustrated, whether they're disappointed, whether they're overconfident, complacent. I mean, there's all kind of impacts that you can have from worrying about what other people think rather than controlling what you can control.
Coach, we've been hitting you with questions. We like to end with giving you the opportunity to fire one back at us. So do you have a question for one of us as you head into your new pastures?
My big thing is how many shots Urban's going to give me. I mean, I'm just worried about winning a golf game now. I'm not worried about all this other stuff.
Coach, you want shots and you out here shooting even par?
He shot even par?
He shot his age. He was bragging to me about it.
It was
Holy
one over,
cow.
par 71.
It don't matter.
Holy
72.
cow.
You giving me strokes.
But I remember you played, like you told me you played high school golf or something because you had a nice swing. And I asked you, you said, yeah, as a kid you played. I was shoveling driveways in Cleveland, Ohio for $2 a driveway, and you were out working on your wedge game.
Yes, for $1 an hour in my dad's service station. So you're not getting any shots from me.
But my handicap is way higher than both of yours. Therefore, you sandbaggers are giving me strokes.
No, if your handicap is higher than mine, you're the sandbagger.
No, I'm not. We've played together. You saw me hit it left, right, everywhere but in the fairway.
But hit it far.
Yeah, far and out of bounds. I'm laying 3.
Coach Saban, thanks for joining us on the first edition of the Triple Option. An honor to talk to you, and we look forward to hearing more from you in the future in your next endeavors. And safe trip to Dublin, Ireland.
And Coach, all I got to tell you is this: make sure you go crowd surfing out there in Ireland. You got to jump in the crowd and go surfing, Coach.
Don't do it,
Let
Coach.
it go.
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
You're Nick
Just
Saban.
let it happen.
You don't have to do that.
That's not my style, son.
No.
You got all the style and the profile. So now you just got to go fly high and get surfing.
All right. That's as much of this as I can take. You guys have a good day.
Thanks, Coach
All right,
Saban.
appreciate it, Coach.
Light it.